How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be continuing the Sharks of Summer series. For those of you guys who are new around here, Sharks of Summer, basically this summer, every week I'm going to be reviewing at least one shark movie a week. I say at least one because sometimes two. And today we're going to cover something kind of interesting. This is Frenzy from 2018, directed by Jose Montesinos, and stars Aubrey Reynolds, Gina, Vitori, and Taylor Jorgensen. Sorry if I mispronounced any of those names. This movie is kind of interesting because this is one that floats around and pops up quite a fair bit. I've seen it at Walmart for sale quite a lot. I think I picked it up from there for like $3.74. This is around there quite a bit. It appears on cable quite a lot. It's on the Sci-Fi Channel a lot. So I figured for as often as this movie pops up, I should actually put it in and watch the movie and see what's going on. So that being said, is it good? Well, okay, we'll talk about the plot. No major spoilers. I do want to say my piece on a few plot points, and I want you guys to have a basic understanding as to what this movie's about. So let's go ahead and dive right in. But yeah, no big spoilers. This movie opens up with a group of YouTubers, the Lit Life, I believe they're called, which I did look it up. There are a few channels called that or some variation on that, but none of them are close to what this channel's doing. This channel is one of those let's explore the world and do something crazy type channels. So they'll go to some place and do something cool there, then go to another place, do something cool there, and your main character is the host younger sister, so she is not as much of a daredevil as everyone else in this group is. So she's more reserved, she's more often, to think, okay, maybe we shouldn't do this, and all the other people go, haha, you're not a survivalist, you're not as tough as we are, but she's getting pulled into this group because her older sister is the head of the group. So she's in there now, and she's our main character. She's gonna fall in love with one of the boys in the group, and then go on some wacky adventure. So what they do this time is there's an area of the water you're not supposed to go in because it's got this island with a nature preserve, so you're not supposed to dive there. And because no one else has explored it, they want to see what's up. They want to figure out, they want to make a video of what's going on there. So they pay this pilot to fly them out there, and they pay him extra to turn off his transponder because they don't want anyone to know that they're in this place they shouldn't be. So the transponder's off. If something bad happens, there's no help for them, which might come in later. They fly over the restricted waters, they get pretty close to the nature preserve, and then, for whatever reason, the plane's wing falls off. This is one of those moments where I'm like, did I miss something? Is there a bigger reason for this? I don't know. They're just flying along and a wing flies off the plane. So they crash in the water. She wakes up with rubble of the planes all around them. There's a few of her friends there, but not everybody. Where's the rest of the group? We don't know that. They find an emergency raft in the supply, so they have a little bit of a shelter. They're on this raft looking around them when suddenly fins appear in the water, and the main girl's like, those are dolphin fins, right? But of course they're not. This is a shark movie. It's 3 sharks that are swarming around them in a feeding frenzy. Now, they don't ever really say feeding frenzy, but the title of the movie is Frenzy, so I'm guessing that's why they're so aggressive and eager to eat them. So they're in the boat, sharks are in the water, there's some rubble around them, and then a little bit away is the island with the nature preserve on it. Unfortunately, the island's in this weird mushroom shape, so they can't really get up top. But there's a structure by that the nature preserve people have built. And then their raft, below their raft is the wreckage of the plane, and in the tail section of the plane is that transponder switched off. So that might be an escape route down there. And then you get the question, what do you do? How do we get out of this? It's a survival situation. So let's go ahead and talk a bit about the pros. One, this is a survival movie. You get some shark movies that are action movies. some shark movies where the shark is almost a slasher. But this one really is survival. You get a group of people, and they're in this predicament. How do they get out? How would you get out? And it does lead to, some cool survival elements. And these movies, just by their very nature, are, something you tune into. And you see why it's played on cable a lot, because you're like, how do you get out of that situation? I gotta know if they survive or not. So there's something intrinsically hooking about just the scenario there. And, you get your main girl, who's a good enough main girl, enough with her, and you root for her, and it's an easy enough character to follow. So the main girl's good enough, which it's a lot of her, and you really need that. It's not the best survival movie ever, and we'll get into more of that in a little bit, but I do want to say it is survival, and there is something hooking about that. But let's talk a bit about some flaws. With a survival movie, you really need these things to be written tight. Because there's the audience. It invites the audience to say, I would do that, I would think this, I would do this. And if you don't think really, really hard when you're writing the script about how every little thing, any little way you could get out of this, it's in turn going to be frustrating to the audience. And it is kind of frustrating. With a good survival movie, you expect plot twist, unexpected plot elements, but you also expect solutions that you wouldn't have thought of. That you want the main characters to do something clever and to say, oh wow, yeah, I wouldn't have thought of that. Or to later go, remember in the survival movie where they do this weird thing? That was a clever idea. And there's not really too much of that. The situation is pretty much the situation from the get-go. There's a few little changes later on, and as far as clever survival stuff, there's not very much of that. Towards the end of the movie, you get them trying to do that, when they go, okay, there's some sharks, we have to come up with a plan, but the plans they come up with are really weird and implausible. You expect something that you look at that and you go, okay, that would work, or at the very least that would work in a movie, but the plans they come up with here are very, very strange and kind of dumb. The first plan they make, I'm not going to spoil it, but it feels like something out of Looney Tunes, And you're like, that's the plan? That you think that's going to work? And it's, weird Looney Tunes plan for the first one, and the other stuff are as implausible but not near as bad, but, it's a survival movie. I expected something way better. And then you get, as far as, clever stuff, you get two of the girls on the boat, the main character and this other girl, and the other girl goes, you're not a real survivalist, you're here because you're clickbait. The cute younger sister gonna fall in love with the boy, and everybody's gonna be watching to figure out, what you're gonna do, but you're not a real survivalist. Then, the main girl picks up an oar and a knife and starts sharpening the end of the oar for whatever reason, I don't know. And then the other girl goes, maybe I had you wrong. Maybe you are a survivalist. And I'm like, were there a bunch of scenes that they cut out or something? I don't know. It's just, you're not a survivalist. Sharpen the oar. You are a survivalist. It's really weird. Nothing clever or interesting happened. She just sharpened the oar, and all of a sudden the other girl thinks completely different of her. It's really weird. There's just not much clever or interesting things happening, and really not much happening at all, There's a lot of the movie where they're sitting in the boat on a raft, and then there's another place at the end of the movie, and we spend a lot of time there as well. There's a whole lot of just, dragging in this movie, and, at the beginning, they're like, we gotta get to the transponder, and they're in a raft with sharks all around them, and I'm like, maybe don't waste so many time/people on this transponder. There's sharks all around you. How about we get out of here and forget about it? But of course they don't, and they have to keep diving into the water with sharks around them, and it does get a little frustrating, but, talk about not much going on. In order to break these scenes up and to give the movie something to do and to add to the runtime, there are several flashbacks in this. In the flashbacks, you see her fall in love with the boy, you see her join the channel, you see her and the other YouTubers, and a lot of these could be cut out, to be honest, you know. So many of them, you flash back and you're like, okay, what exactly was the point of that scene? Some of them do have a point, but so many of these flashbacks could have been cut and you not really miss anything. And it makes me wonder, okay, like maybe if you put them just in a bigger chunk or something and didn't just use like a random minute here and there, I don't know. But these flashbacks, most of them are kind of pointless. It is kind of clever because they'll usually use a visual tie-in to make the transition to the past smoother, but yeah, these flashbacks aren't really the best, but it does shake up the monotony and add to the runtime. So, you know, when you look at movies trying to add to their runtime, sometimes they do something dumb like just film the water for 5 minutes, and I'd much rather have this. But that being said, the flashbacks aren't super great. But also, let's talk about the characters. The main character, like I said, good enough. Not super fleshed out, but you see, okay, she likes her boyfriend, she's the outsider, and you want her to get out. But the rest of the crew is pretty much one of those, you get one trait, and that's your personality type cast. So you get the one guy who's the funny guy, and then you get the other girl who's formerly in the army, so she's tough and stuff, and then you get the boyfriend character who's the nice boyfriend, and then you get the older sister that's competitive, and that's pretty much it for their personalities. Nothing too big, you know. I mean, the army person has a backstory, and you know, it's just kind of flat characters, you know. So that is a thing in there as well. But let's also talk about the low budget aspect and the CGI. This is obviously a low budget movie. The sharks, primarily CGI, but they're not as bad as a lot of these other movies. They actually put in the effort to get the sharks and the actors in the same shot, which really shouldn't be that big of a deal, and it really shouldn't feel like something I have to praise, but so many of these other movies don't. And I really did like, okay, the shark and the actor, same shot, that's good, and the CGI sharks don't look as bad as you'd think. There is a bit of, you know, cutting to hide, you know, the fact that, you know, they are CG, and a few of them you're like, okay, that's a cut to hide the budget. But oddly though, the CG that was the worst is for things you wouldn't expect to be CG. Like there was a piece of CG, just plane wreckage floating in the water. I'm like, why is that plane wreckage CG? And you could tell. And then a shark interacts with it. I'm like, oh, that's why it was CG. And then, you know, CG blood pooling in the water. Okay, you could have used some actual just eco-friendly red dye, but no, CG blood just doesn't look as good. But then also a few shots of the plane, you know, either the wreckage underwater or it flying, that just look really bad, you know, plain CGI. I think, you know, it's just, it didn't have as much as the imperfections as you would expect from a real plane or something. I don't know, but you could totally see the CGI plane. A weird shot, when you talk about this movie's low budget, there's one scene where she finds a flare, and she finds the flare and she shoots it up into the sky immediately. Now, one thing about this, there was, you know, you find the flare, you shoot it to get help, but if you just shoot it as soon as you find it, like, you don't know if anyone's gonna see it. Wait till you see a boat or something in the distance or a plane, then shoot your flare, because if you just shoot it as soon as you get it, you never know if anyone's gonna see it or not. But the weird low budget thing is, it goes up in the sky and they don't get the shot of the red light going through the sky. You see the smoke coming out of the gun, but they missed the shot of the red light floating through the sky. I'm like, why didn't they show that? That's a crucial shot for this scene. And flares aren't even that expensive. You can buy a flare gun at Walmart. I could afford one. I don't know why that shot's missing, but the weird low budget aspect of the movie, that's sort of the kind of stuff you'll get from it. And I mean, there's some other things, you know, you talk about low budget movie plotting, you know, you have to have this stuff really tight and tied down, and like, there's one part at the 2/3 mark where the movie really should be over, but I'm like, oh, it's got 30 minutes in this, something implausible's gonna happen, in order to keep the plot going, and sure enough, it did. And that's sort of the movie you're dealing with there. Let's see. Yeah, so this movie, it's hooking enough because it is a survival movie, and you do wonder how they're going to get out, but it's not the best written, and in turn, a lot of this movie is really flat, not much is going on, and I miss the clever survival solutions that you would expect to be with this kind of movie, but they're just not there. It's okay. I think that's really the thing with this movie, is this is not really a bad movie, like, other than the weird Looney Tunes stuff at the end, there's nothing in the movie that's too terribly offensive. It's just not a good movie either. There's not any clever twist in the writing, there's not any clever survival stuff, and in turn, a lot of this movie just feels kind of blank. Characters that we kind of care about, and they're floating in the raft for a long time. Overall, not the best movie. I just wish that they had gotten someone to do another pass of the script, come up with something I wouldn't have thought of, and just had the situation be much tighter with changing elements, but instead they're in a raft going, "Hey, I gotta dive to the transponder, but there's sharks there," and that lasts way too long. And overall, it's okay, it's watchable. I'd classify this as, that lazy Saturday afternoon movie where you just want to sit on the couch, put something on, and not think about it too much. And I guess that's why this gets played on cable so often. Like I said, not really terrible. You can watch it and root for the characters and want them to get out, and hey, there's sharks, but, don't expect too much from this. Watchable, okay, nothing great or innovative, and you really do want a survival movie to have good twist and good writing, because that's really what you crave with a survival movie, and this is just kind of there, Anyway, I hope I'm not rambling too long. To everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You're really helping the channel out. I'll put a relevant playlist on the bottom. If you want to see more, you can click there and see more. Anyway, have a good day now. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Should be my shark movies playlist if you want to see me talk about more shark movies. Anyway, have a good day.